Good afternoon, everyone. This is the rundown, and we have breaking news. The, quote, big beautiful bill has passed the House of Representatives in the United States. Since this is an identical version to the Senate one that passed a short while ago, it is on its way as we speak to Donald Trump's desk. Since signing it is probably a high priority to him, he is likely to have it signed before the end of the day. It has caught us slightly off guard. I was well aware, as is everyone else in the country, that he had boasted that he was going to get this done by January 4th. He's made a number of boasts that haven't come true, and there were 5 holdout senators. They needed 2, which admittedly is not a lot out of 5. We have 5 holdout senators. They all know that it's almost the prisoner's dilemma. The Nash prisoner's dilemma, look that one up if you don't know what that is, because a Nash equilibrium has a lot to do. It revolutionized our understanding of economics, social situations, and so on and so forth. But with 5 people and you only need 2 of them, it doesn't take a lot to pressure to flip. Having said that, I thought it might occur tomorrow. The federal holiday notwithstanding, this is a cornerstone piece of legislation, and they've worked through holidays before. Having said that, it appears to have gotten done today. So what is in the bill? That's a really good question, and if you get the answer to that, please let me know. We have some idea of what's in it. The problem is that there was a marathon session in the Senate to go through and modify this bill. We covered some of the modifications. One of the more controversial ones was Lisa Murkowski, who I had a lot more respect for previously than I do now, who was able to she's a Republican, but she always sort of pulls hard to the Democrats and threatens to vote Democratic, does so very rarely, has done so on a few issues so obvious. One of them was on remote voting for female members of Congress who have just given birth, allowing them to vote on issues from the hospital, something that they had actually previously been able to do during COVID and then was revoked. And she voted for that with Democrats and against conservatives. But having said that, she threatens to vote Democratic a lot, ends up voting conservative. She's part of how and why Kavanaugh was able to get into, was passed into SCOTUS, and she did so only after he made concessions to her that it was obvious he was never going to follow through with. Having said that, she was able to get concessions such as, so one of the things we do know about this package is it makes significant cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, something that Trump promised never to do. The way Trump is doing it is, and the way that this has been done in the past is, they don't make the cuts to Medicare or Medicaid. You won't see any cuts to Medicare or Medicaid in this package. What you will see is cuts to the committee that oversees Medicare and Medicaid, which is actually titled something like the Transportation something or other committee. And Medicare and Medicaid is a subset of that, but the only way to get the necessary cuts that committee has been forced to make is to make drastic cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. This Nancy Pelosi once so eloquently said, "We don't know what's in the bill until we pass it." And what she was trying to say by that is that it gets so convoluted, and there's so many tricks and so many ways that various elements of this could pan out. You don't necessarily know what the effects are going to be until long after the bill has passed. Having said that, we know that there are going to be significant cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. It does mandate a few specific changes, including raising the age for which somebody must be employed a minimum of 80 hours a month to receive Medicaid. I think the age goes up from 55 to 65. It makes a number of other significant changes, but again, that is not talking about the cuts which are hidden in the bill. Why make these cuts? Well, they've got a serious, no, well, it apparently doesn't seem to be a serious problem at all. They've got a minor problem, which is they campaigned on the fact that this bill would cut the deficit. The CBO, that's the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan group whose job it is to say how much a bill is going to cost. That's all their job is. It's not to say whether it's a good bill or a bad bill or whether it's going to achieve what it says it's going to achieve. They're completely irrelevant to them. What they care about is how much is that bill going to cost. That is all they care about. And it can be difficult for them to keep up when there's huge amounts of changes and scoring going on. And there have been times when the CBO is a week behind the changes occurring to a bill. This time they've managed to keep up and have said that this particular bill is going to add $3.6 trillion to the federal deficit, the federal debt over 10 years. That is a gross violation of one of the many promises that are being violated by this bill, not to touch Medicare and Medicaid and not to increase the deficit. This increases the deficit. They have to find ways to cut, so they've been cutting from these programs. But they do so in ways that, unless you know how the budget works, and unless you know how Congress funds things, you're not going to really spot it. You can find it in the news, but it's buried on page 3. What's buried on page 1 is whatever is sensationalist enough that you're going to buy the newspaper. So what do we have in this bill? Well, we have a significant number of tax cuts. The Republicans refuse to call them tax cuts. They say these are not tax cuts. We are simply extending previous tax cuts. That was a little bit like George H.W. Bush when he said no new taxes. I'll just raise the old ones. The original Trump tax cuts are set to expire at the end of this year. This would reinstitute former tax rates repeal tax cuts that had previously been given. This is set to happen. So right now, as of this moment, by the end of, I think it's this year, the taxes will be going up on high income earners. So that is a tax liability that they can expect. If you cut that liability, that is a tax cut, even if they're not paying the tax at this exact moment. So it's not the extension of tax cuts. I mean, that's one way to frame it. I can see why they want to frame it that way. But it's basically giving tax cuts once again to the wealthy. And the total overall amount, let's see, the top 1% of U.S. households will earn an average tax cut of about $66,000, according to the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. Again, that is a nonpartisan institute. The highest earners in states like Wyoming, South Dakota, and Texas are set to get a tax cut of more than $100,000 from this bill. So the money to pay for what's in this bill and to pay for these cuts is coming out of Medicare, Medicaid, and various other programs that we're about to discuss in a minute. Let's see. Overall, low-income earners are losing money, both as a result of much smaller tax cuts and changes to Medicare, SNAP, and Medicaid that will find them paying more. They're going to have to pay more now out of pocket for office visits as much. I think there's now going to be a $60 deductible is going to be the highest for people going to just regular office visits. If that is the case, $60 for an office visit is a bit much, but it doesn't sound too overwhelming unless you're the mother of 3 children, you're the sole income earner of those 3 children, and you're already taking a day off from work, which isn't going to get compensated because that's been cut previously, so that you can make sure that your children are well and getting their required health care visits. Just for their own safety and or so that they can go to school. So it's a level of at a minimum, disconnect with the realities that poor people are facing, and perhaps goes so high as, say, a level of cruelty to continue to add tax cuts to people who are doing just fine in this country. And at the risk of repeating myself, so many conservatives say they want to go back to the era of the 50s when a single income earner could pay for a car, a home, and get his kids to college. Because it was the he's who were doing the single income earning. And let's eliminate all the smarmy but nonetheless legitimate responses of the social status of men, women, blacks, and gays, and other minorities during the 50s. And let's just focus on the economics. I'd love to get back there too. I'd love to do it. So why don't we? The way they did it was really quite simple. They had a 91% marginal income tax rate. 91%. If you were earning $1 million or more, they were taxing you 91%. Now, if they want to raise the tax just to 20%, they call you a socialist. You're a socialist if you want 20%. But this is from the same people who are saying we just are trying to get back to the 50s. There's a way they did it. We know how they did it. And I can hear echoing in my ears the voices of especially conservatives saying we want to get lawmakers who are going to stop lying to us. And most of the lawmakers know how we did the 50s, but they're not interested in that. They're interested in doing what Lisa Murkowski did, which is getting a cutout so that her state, Alaska, is exempt from the changes in Medicare and Medicaid. That's very convenient if you're an Alaskan. And to some extent, kudos for her. She's fiercely advocating for her state, but the problem is that this is a bill affecting the entire country. It's not a bill for her state. And, wow. So, it's 101, it's 100,000, Jesus, it's 1,100 pages. So it's going to be a while till we know everything that's in it. We know there are significant tax cuts for the rich, as I said, $66,000 on average, which is about 2.4% of income. For the top 1% household earners for 2006. And let's see, households that have an income of about $1 million per year, it's going to average to, oh no, that can't be right. Okay, I'll have to get to that. I'll have to get back to that. What else is in the bill that we do? And it's going to be a while. Tonight we have a downtime, and it's going to be Commander McMillan and myself. I think I'd like to get a Xandring on, and we wanted to discuss some of the toxicity going on, especially Elon Musk, who has threatened to primary anyone who votes for this bill and has jumped back into politics. Considering how badly he got spanked the first time, I'm a little surprised to see that he's as willing to do it. I'm kind of glad, because I think toxicity eats toxicity. So we'll be discussing that tonight. We are not going to get tonight, I think, too much into the details of the bill, and the details are going to take time to emerge. I'm right now sort of as quickly as possible going over what we know from the last few. They added, when this bill first got to the Senate, I think it was about 600 pages. It's now 1,100. So figuring out what exactly it says and what it doesn't, and the fact that I know it's fun to spank Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I can't believe I just said that in a world of clipping. Fortunately, I don't think that In Time can be clipped because we're a news program. But having said that, I know it's fun to give her a hard time for not having read the bill and not knowing about the AI rules when she voted against it, and then saying, oh my God, if I had read the bill, but most of them don't read the bill. And there's a number of reasons why they don't read the bill. One of them is the bills change so friggin' quickly. So we're going to get into it. Thank you very much to the team on the Discord right now who is helping supply me with the latest that we know as we know it. It hasn't been signed. It will be signed. This bill will go into law. So for those of you just joining us, it has passed the House. It has passed the Senate. It is the same version. Reconciliation can often take a while. Trump said he wanted this done by the 4th of July for symbolic reasons. The House Speaker said that he would deliver it by the 4th, and I thought that was laughable because they had at a minimum 5 holdouts. I didn't see how they could do it, and they've done it. So this has caught all of us a little off guard. I was anticipating the bill, after significant struggle, would pass. This was quick. They are definitely once again, they have proven when they really want to. Boy, can these guys get things done. So, cuts to Medicare, SNAP, Medicaid, increase in the age for Medicaid. Now, the other thing, and this gets me into, and this is going to be a little bit of a longer rundown than usual, and the reason is because, again, we're not going to have a separate show covering this probably until tomorrow, so I want to cover it a little more during, the rundown's supposed to just be short, boom, 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 but I want to cover this a little bit in more detail that we have now, since we're probably not going to cover it significantly until tomorrow. But I'd like to point something out. There's a concept in economics, which is that, for the most part, every agent will do whatever is in their best interests. Now, you have to assume this for economics to work. And you need to realize it's an assumption. Now, every discipline makes assumptions, every single one. When you start to get into philosophy, I have a BA in philosophy, you realize that every discipline makes assumptions. Geometry assumes a point, and it assumes a line, and it assumes a circle. Those 3 things are assumed. The definition is sort of given a priori. You can't ask, well, what are they composed of? No, here's the definition, we're going forward. Science makes a number of assumptions. I've met many people who say science makes no assumptions, going, oh, yes, it does. It assumes that there are things called laws that can be discovered through observation and through experimentation. If that's not true, science is worthless. Well, prove that it's true. You can prove that it's been true thus far. You can't prove that it's universal and going to keep going forever. We don't know. We just assume it because that's the only way science works, if you assume that. You also assume that science is not local. So the laws of physics are the same in one lab in the United States as they are in a lab in, say, Germany, as they are on Jupiter, as they are in another galaxy another solar system in the Milky Way galaxy. You assume that the laws of the universe are consistent and aren't going to change. Imagine if they did. It would make science very difficult. So everybody makes assumptions. An assumption made by economics is that people are going to act in their own best interest, and they tend to extend this to corporations, for which a lot of which is true because corporations are run by people. The problem is that the people at the top are incentivized to skew it in their favor at the overall health cost of the company. This is what caused the crash of 2007, which is many companies were selling products they knew were bad. In fact, they they insured these products and then bet that the insurance was going to be required so that the products would fail, and they overinsured the products so that when the products failed, they could make money on the failure of their own products instead of on the sale of those products. So this is what led to the collapse of 2007, and Alan Greenspan famously testified before Congress when he was asked, well, wait a minute, why were these companies doing things that they knew would destroy them in the long run? Doesn't this violate a fundamental rule of economics? And he goes, yeah, I don't have an answer. This defies, I am at a loss. Well, it's pretty simple. When the CEO is so divorced from everybody else that's working below him, and when he's making so much money more than they are, he is incentivized to do whatever it takes to goose the stock short term while he's there, then use his golden parachute that says he's going to get $22 million no matter what the condition of the company is when he gets out. And he can leverage those kinds of deals because everybody else is in on a rigged game. That is the complaint. For people who are asking why Democrats are upset about corporations and so on and so forth. It's not because people are making money. I'm not allergic to making money. I'm not allergic to making lots of money. I'd like to make a lot of money. So would you, most of you out there. That's not the problem. The problem is the way money, A, buys freedom from consequence for illegal actions. And if you disagree, just ask O.J. Simpson, ask any number of, we've seen it. But it also buys the ability to leverage that money into making more money at the cost of everybody else, to literally unlevel the playing field. That is what this bill is doing. This bill is, from what I can tell looking at it, selling out the future of the United States of America in order to make money for the people who are in power right now. How does it do that? Again, A, cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. B, cuts to rescinding clean air laws for heavy-duty vehicles, greenhouse gas reduction fund, the diesel emissions reduction, lowering standards for air pollution. These are serious issues, and we're already starting to genuinely see the effects of climate change. We have all seen it by now, and this is the best it's ever going to get. It's only going to go downhill from there. And instead of investing in ways to stop this for the future, they are investing in ways to make sure that their states, like Alaska, are immune from the cuts that this makes. And as we have a looming sovereign debt crisis, which we have talked about, which for the first time in history, politicians are starting to talk about. It's the conservatives talking about it. It's the Republicans who are like, we could actually have a sovereign debt crisis, which is a serious, serious thing. And so a whole bunch of conservatives said, we aren't going to vote for a bill that adds to the deficit. And they have now all voted for a bill that's going to add 3.1 trillion over 10 years to the debt. So they are, and we can't afford it. We cannot afford to keep doing this. We genuinely can't. And they're getting the cuts from the bottom and giving more tax breaks to the rich. And there's no excuse for that. They can sit there and say trickle-down economics, but we've tried that repeatedly, time and time again. They're giving the tax breaks to the rich because it's the rich that are donating and keeping them in office. That is the only reason why, and anyone who says there is another reason is lying or ignorant. This bill, just like the, what is it? Oh, it's going to take a while. There were so many terms back then. I was going to say the credit default swaps and the mortgage-backed securities of 2007, 2008. This bill is a poison pill that helps the people at the top right now stay at the top and get more while selling out the country's ability to function and increasing the debt. It increases also, by the way, our military. We spend more on our military than the top 10 countries behind us, all combined, all put together. And most of that top 10 is allies. That's like Canada, the UK. Canada may not be an ally anymore, but that was easily avoidable. I'd just as soon not invade Canada, but I'm not orange, so I guess I have no say in the matter. So this pulls back incentives to try to bring up people from the bottom. It pulls back on education funding. It also adds taxes to endowments, to universities. It's an attack on the intellectual infrastructure of this country. Conservatives, despite there being a number of intellectual conservatives tend to distrust and dislike intellectuals. Trump is very much in that camp. And intellectuals tend to be very snarky, pompous, and sit on their ivory tower. I concur with that, and that's a very bad attitude and does not help working together. Having said that, for the conservative phrase, with no farms, there'd be no food, well, they're correct. No ivory tower. There wouldn't be very many farms either. It's the ivory tower that taught us how to make genetically modified organisms, including the corn, apple, wheat, everything that we eat now, things that have pulled people out of poverty. The reason that the average life expectancy has gone from 34 years old, which is what it was for the last 100,000 years, to in the 80s is because of antibiotics, air conditioning, electricity, things that were brought to us by the ivory tower. So let's just admit we kind of need everybody and try to work together on this. Having said that, this bill directly assaults it by hitting schools like MIT, Harvard, Yale, with new taxes on their endowments. So if you're trying to get an education, we're going to tax you. If you already have lots of money, we're going to stop taxing you. That is the general thrust of this bill. We're also going to pull money for anything having to do with climate change because we'd like to have that money go into the pockets of the rich. Let's see. This does raise the debt limit to 46 trillion. Regrettably, I concur that that was a good idea, only in as much as the debt limit or the debt ceiling is what allows us to pay our bills. And when it's been too low, Republicans have been holding it hostage. Even Mitch McConnell admitted that holding it hostage was terrible for the economy. But while it wasn't, quote, a hostage worth shooting, it was certainly a hostage worth taking. Once again, leaders of the United States government working in the best interest of the United States. It also, and this is, once again, this is not just a funding bill, because in one way or another it affects almost every element of U.S. domestic policy. So it is affecting how we address climate change. There is in the bill a new fee for an application for suspension of deportation. It's a, what is it, a $600 fee, or such an amount that the Attorney General may establish by rule, so they can raise that to any amount they want. Well, if you want to make it so that you can deport anybody at any time, set the fee to $1 million. Now, if you want to appeal your deportation, you have to put a $1 million bond down in order to do that. Most 99% of Americans would be unable to do that, so you can deport Americans if you want to. And by the way, Trump has threatened to do that, and Trump has prioritized in the Department of Justice the revocation of U.S. citizenship. Any case which involves the revocation of U.S. citizenship has now been prioritized and goes to the front of the line of the Department of Justice. This means he can target Americans that he wants to deport, but can't deport because they're citizens, get their citizenship stripped, and then deport them unless they can pay a $1 million fee or whatever the fee is. Right now it's $600. A significant portion of Americans could pay that if they had to. If you were told you need to come up with $600 in a week or you're going to get deported, you could do that. But that $600 is still awfully high. You don't need $600 for a fee for a hearing to which, by the way, they actually have a right. So hidden inside this poison pill of a bill is a way to block, in the same way that in the Jim Crow era, blacks were prohibited from voting, not by law. The law said, oh, nope, everybody gets to vote. So in the South, they said, okay, fine, but you know what? We want only people who can read to vote. And since there was an entire generation that had never gone to school, most black people in the South couldn't read. So now you've kept blacks from voting without keeping blacks from voting. This is a way of keeping people from exercising their rights to at least due process. Nobody has the right to be innocent. If you committed the crime, go to jail. Nobody's saying a right to be innocent. They're saying a right to be heard. And this says, yeah, you've got that right still, just like the Supreme Court has promised. But you're going to have to pay $600. How many of the people who are going to be facing deportation can suddenly come up with $600 or just get deported, because as of the last time that I read what the process is here, the Trump administration has taken, they have 24 hours. So you'd have 24 hours to come up with the $600 and do it without making a phone call. So you're in jail, either got $600 on you or you're deported. That's what this bill's going to do. All right, and then Bregman put in, let's see, as Sean McCrant. Okay, so there were two of the five. They only needed 2 of the 5 holdouts to switch. And apparently, and this is all for Twitter, so it's honestly, how much truth there is to it, I don't know. But apparently, two House Republicans were swayed by an opportunity to get signed merch and a photograph with the president. That's as likely true as not. I have no idea. It's kind of scary if true. All right, so I am going to start wrapping it up. Like I said, I knew this was going to take a little bit longer for any number of reasons. A, we don't know everything that's in the bill. It's 1,100 pages. It started at about 600 pages, and it's been growing, changing, getting cut, getting added. And we genuinely anticipated the reconciliation process to take longer. We were not anticipating that this would happen today. Oh, yes, there is one more thing. Thank you, Titan, and thank you, by the way, Dorito, who put a lot of stuff on the news channel. Because this is literally just, it's on its way to the president right now, and we barely know what's in it. This fully funds the creation of a border wall. The funding is a significant, let me just see, the funding for the border wall is unlimited, if I'm reading this correctly. Section 90,001, Border Infrastructure and Wall System. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated the Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection for fiscal year 2025 out of any monies of the Treasury not otherwise appropriated to remain available until September 30th, 2029, $46,550,000,000 for necessary expenses related to the following elements of the border and infrastructure wall system. So, if I am reading that correct, what they're saying is anything up to the debt limit is considered money in the Treasury, even though it's not there because we're in debt, but okay. And any of it can be spent for border protection up to the new debt limit ceiling. So what they're basically saying is you can max out the credit cards on there isn't even a financial appropriation. They're not saying we're adding $1 trillion for the border wall. They're not saying that. They're not saying here's $2 billion for the border wall. They're not appropriating any money. They're saying after the budget, any money that's left over, which would be the difference between the budget and the debt ceiling, which was raised by $10 trillion, anything left over can be used at will by U.S. Customs and Border Protection for expenses relating to elements of border infrastructure in the wall system. So that would be, since they've upped the debt ceiling, at which we were just about anyway, they've upped it by $10 trillion. So that's $10 trillion, up to $10 trillion available for border infrastructure in the wall system. That's crazy. That's insane. We're gonna need to talk to a historian, because I would like to know if there is any other time in U.S. history when in the budget it said any amount left over up to the debt ceiling limit of the United States of America can be spent by anybody, whether it's the president. I've never heard of this before. And the problem, another problem aside, is, all you have to do is just, it's U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Now, the wording is border infrastructure and wall systems. So I'm delighted that it is that limited and not just, quote, the defense of this country. Because imagine if that said, for the defense of this country. That would mean you could hire Blackwater to go around kidnapping U.S. citizens, because that's the defense of this country, and you would have an almost unlimited budget to do that. That doesn't say that. What it says is for border infrastructure and wall systems. It also does enumerate past that what that means, and I don't have that enumeration available at this moment. We do have a copy of the entire bill. It is on the Discord. Again, it's 1,100 pages. But this is one of the ones that I'm going to be asking questions about going forward. It's essentially an unlimited budget up to the budget ceiling as declared, the deficit ceiling as, the debt ceiling as declared by Congress, which has been raised by 10 trillion. So right now, that's 10 trillion that U.S. Customs and Border Protection has been authorized for the spending of the wall and border infrastructure. We'll have to see what that means. That's staggering. As I said, and we can't do breaking news every time we find something like this. There's going to be a lot like this. Like I said, this literally just happened. All of us were expecting reconciliation to take longer. Join us on the Discord, and we're going to be having a lot of discussions on this, and I think we're going to be breaking down a lot of elements of this. I would first of all like to thank everybody who hopped to it, because none of us were expecting this, and the entire team is already up and running, and the process is flowing exactly as it should. So thank you to everybody. What you'll find if you join our Discord is a lot of people discussing these issues and breaking them down and finding stuff like this, and usually before mainstream media, if they even cover it, or at least cover it anywhere except on page 6 or 7. This is going to take a while, but essentially what this bill is increasing the deficit significantly, increasing the debt by 3.1 trillion over 10 years, increased tax cuts for the rich by a significant amount, a slight increase tax cut for the poor, but a raising of the bar for getting full Medicare and Medicaid coverage, reduction in SNAP benefits, and what appears to be, that I haven't seen anyone talk about unless it got cut at the last second. I haven't seen it. If it got cut, then Murkowski wouldn't have needed to do what she did. What appears to be a significant cut to the House committee that runs Medicare and Medicaid, which will translate to a significant cut to Medicare and Medicaid. It's completely unavoidable. It's one of the few times, like Elon Musk is like, guys, they're pulling a switcheroo on you. They say they're not cutting it, but they're cutting the committee that runs it. And if you cut that committee, you cut Medicare. It's like, yeah, I really, if I'm saying that Elon Musk has a point, it physically hurts. My chest just starts to, when I have to say something like that. Tonight on Downtime, we're going to be talking about Elon Musk and Trump, about what's going on between them. Probably a bit about the effects of this bill, but I think that's all you're going to see in the news for the next day or two. And so I think we're going to try to get a better understanding ourselves of that, so that we have something unique to offer that you're not getting anywhere else. So we're gonna break that down over time. I don't know. I'm sure Lance is going to have something to say about it, but also want to talk about what is Elon's effect going to be. He has said he is going to primary everybody who voted for this bill. That's a lot of people. Elon's got a lot of money. He also claims to have some kind of nuclear option against Trump, which he may or may not do. We can speculate on that, but certainly figure out what's going to happen in regards to that. And the subsidies for electric vehicles have, of course, been pulled. Everyone claims that that's why Musk is upset. I have my own speculations, but it's hard to say. Nonetheless, Musk does have a point when he says we need to be investing in cleaner energies, not divesting of clean energy sources. And while he has incentive to say that, he's not wrong. And we are the only industrialized country that is divesting of that. That's pretty shocking. And again, the last time I saw this was 2007. We are selling our future for immediate profits of those who are currently in power today. We all know how that ends. So I don't know. I think we'll see. The good news, the CBO said that this is going to add $3.1 trillion over 10 years. Why over 10 years? Well, because it takes a long time for these things to get through, and it usually, the effects of very bad budget bills, we've seen bad budget bills in the past, the effects take often more than a term to actually promulgate through the system. So this isn't going to, we're not going to wake up tomorrow and find the U.S. burning and everything burning down. It's a bad bill, and it's got a lot of serious problems, and it needs to be taken very, very seriously. But all of these things don't happen overnight. There's institutionalized resistance to it, and some of it's going to have to be walked back. This is just a one part of a much longer and larger battle. But this is if the bill is as it appears to be, and as I suspect, I think this is going to be a very large problem for us as Americans, not us, the liberals, but for all of us going forward. And is a profoundly concerning bill. Again, join us on the Discord, and you can learn more about that. Let's see, 𝐒𝐤𝐜𝐴 is doing a stream on consciousness, which is a topic that I enjoy discussing, and he has invited me on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set I don't think he's started yet, but I am going to send everyone over there if he's got it up, which he may not. He does not, so I can't send anyone. I can't send anyone over to... I'm going to be on 𝐒𝐤𝐜𝐴 The Onion. We're going to be discussing consciousness. Is it an emergent property of the brain? What is it? Yada, yada, yada. So those of you who want to see that, come join us on the Discord. We'll drop a link to that too. And... we did get some super chats, and I want to make sure I get to those. They are very important, and they are genuinely very helpful. We do this full time, so we are slaves to the same capitalism. We do need to be making an income. UTV and Ham gifted one membership. UTV and Ham, always reliable for that membership, and we sincerely thank you. It adds up, and it adds up quickly, so thank you. Dunk on You. $20 for the lights. Got out of work early today. 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐜𝐴, Heroyam Slava, and thank you. It definitely does help keep the lights on, so thank you, sir. Duncan, you also gifted 5 memberships, and Daddy Jim, £10 sterling. Love listening to your sermon, Nick, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. I laugh because that's not something I get very often. Let me rephrase that. I get called, what I say gets called sermons very frequently. It's an acquired taste, but thank you, sir, very much. And thank you for the support and for the £10 sterling, and just the general support. Thank you to all the time travelers, all of you who have become members, support us, and those of you who have been helping with the breaking news on the Discord. We're going to follow this, and we're going to see, we're going to follow a couple other things too. So stay with us and stay safe. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, for Downtime with Commander McMillan and with his Xandering, hopefully. Thank you all. Good night.